What's up, everybody? Drew here, and I'm doing the wheel bearing on the back of this beautiful 2012 Honda CRV. I'm very used to the third generation CRV, 07 through 11, and these 12s are getting up there in age, and it's time to start bringing them in. And I'm not sure this has been covered exactly the way I'm doing it, so I wanted to share it with you guys. So these back wheel bearings, any wheel bearing, can be kind of a miserable job. If you're a DIYer that doesn't do them all the time, or even if you're a professional that's just used to a different brand. So I wanted to go over with you guys exactly what I did to make this a super quick and easy job. This car isn't really rusty at all. It's from like coastal Massachusetts. So yes, it's been exposed to snow, but not much salt, not much road salt like we have here in Rochester. So everything came apart pretty easy. The first thing I did is I took the caliper off. Obviously I took the wheel out, but I took the caliper off. And a little trick, you can put your C-clamp on these and put the plunger through this side and the stationary end on the bolt, the banjo bolt here, just to compress that enough without taking it apart to slide it off, right? So I did that, of course, disconnected. This is a 12 millimeter head right here and I put it here to keep it safe. That holds the line on so that can get out of the way. This is the ABS speed sensor, which is a 10 millimeter bolt right down there. I always use a very sharpened chisel and very light taps from the back of my 3/8 ratchet to get in there and loosen that up, and then gently wiggle it out. I left the emergency brake cable connected. So this is a 32 millimeter axle nut, which came off surprisingly easy. I believe it's 133 foot-pounds on this particular vehicle that this is on there with, so not that much. It's very lightweight too. I don't know if it's like aluminum or what. Strange. But yeah, just one of these guys that's cheap at Harbor Freight. And if you're doing this job and you think you might never do it again, it's cheap enough that you should have it in your toolbox because you never know. So that's off of here. There are 4 of these guys that hold the wheel bearing on. Here's the new one, right? I'll show you on the old one. That's the back. It slides into this bore. Obviously, these hold it in from the back, and they're not in there with a lot of torque. Now, the big thing here was I took this out, this bolt that holds this upper, locating arm, control arm, whatever. Took that out and loosened this one. I did not touch that one because it is quite obvious that it has to do with the alignment, and I don't want to mess with that at all. So I loosened that one. That's just a stationary bushing. This is a stationary bushing. This one, as you're taking it out, it feels like the thing's going to spring back in your face. It does, but not that much, which means it's going to be pleasant to put back together, but that's not going to be impossible. So anyways, that's out. That one's loosened, and you're gently tapping. There's like a little hole in the end. It's like a little a pointed hole, if you will. I just put my I guess you'd call it a chisel, but it's the round kind. A punch, center punch. There we go. I use these to get inside this little squared keyway to open up the locking portion of the nut, which is right there. You can see that divot. That's normally caved in to stop the nut from backing off. I use the same thing, put it in here, and just gentle taps, and it pushes the axle out. Now, with an impact, this is an impact grade swivel, and this is a 17 millimeter. It was a bit tight, but pulling out on this and pushing this in allowed me to get in there and take each one of those off with the impact, which was super quick and easy. And then the wheel bearing assembly just came right out, easy peasy. Putting it back together is the reverse of that. Just a little note, there are these tiny little screws that hold in your rotor. Don't forget about those. A trick that I use for those is I use a very large screwdriver that's square, and if they're stuck, I push in as hard as I can while using a wrench on the square profile to crack it, right? Instead of twisting, I just use like a quick snap, and that usually works. Worst case, you got to drill them out, and that sucks, but you'll get through it. Anyways, so the rotor's off. Parking brake cable you don't have to mess with that at all. And check the torque specs. I believe, again, it's 133 foot-pounds for this guy. You're going to have to check on these. I'll post them in the comment if I could find them. But all in all, a very easy job if you know these shortcuts. You don't have to take off the entire knuckle. You don't have to take apart the parking brake, any of that. Also, everything goes back together much easier if the bore inside that this fits into. It's multiple terraces, if you will. Clean that out. I have one of these. These used to be like $9 at Harbor Freight before the world fell apart and everything went up in price. These used to be about $9. So my thing was I have one of these with an attachment on it. Every attachment I could possibly want also has, you know, one of these cheap grinders. Just clean out the inside of that. Basically just move the axle around and try not to hit it or the splines or anything, but just clean that up nice and this will slide right in for you. Hopefully this video is helpful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I try to fill it with a lot of little tips and tricks like this on your Hondas and your Toyotas. So again, this is Drew, and this is a 2012 Honda CRV rear wheel bearing. Thank you.